The next step after species counterpoint is what is usually called tonal counterpoint, or counterpoint in Bach style. There are two main differences between this kind of counterpoint and the species approach. First, the harmony is much richer, and second, it uses motives to create more memorable musical ideas. In this lesson, we'll look at the new harmonic resources at our disposal. By now, the student should have attained a certain ease in combining lines in 2, 3, and 4 parts. However, the harmony, in part because of the simple diatonic canti, has always remained quite simple. Now we'll enlarge our harmonic vocabulary with all the resources of tonal harmony, fluent use of all the seventh chords and their inversions, 6/4 chords, passing and neighboring chords, richer forms of dissonance, and modulation. We'll explore these changes by looking at a few examples in detail. Here's the first example in 3 parts. The given part is the bass. Here are the differences from CC's counterpoint. Some of them we've seen before in the last lesson, others are new here. First, the harmonic rhythm varies between 2 and 4 chords per bar. Second, we're now using eighth notes for the first time. Sometimes the eighth notes create simple passing tones, for example in the last beat of measure 4. At other times they create accented passing tones, as on the second beat of measure 2, where the 2 outer parts move in parallel thirds, or in measure 3 on the last beat in the bass. Accented passing tones are an important new resource, since they allow even that note on the strong beat to be a dissonance. Take note, from now on, with these stepwise eighth notes, the chord tone can be either of the 2 notes. Of course, if the second is a dissonance, it must resolve stepwise as usual. 3. For the moment, there'll never be more than 2 eighth notes at a time. The overall momentum is still quarter notes. The eighth notes must always also be conjunct, at least for now. 4. Note the suspensions which create seventh chords in measure 3 and measure 4. We've seen this occasionally before, but now they're a normal part of harmonic vocabulary. Note how, in measure 4, the bass keeps moving as the suspension resolves. In fact, the suspension itself becomes an accented passing tone. 5. In measure 5 we have a 1/6/4 chord, where the fourth is prepared, arriving first as a syncopation. For now, this kind of syncopated motive will only occur at the cadence. In our next lesson we'll discuss motives in general, including syncopation. Now, the same given part, but this time realized in 4 parts. Note here, first, the 2/4/2 in measure 1 on the third beat. Second, note the accented passing tones in the soprano on the last beats of measure 1 and measure 2. Also the accented passing note in the bass on the last beat of measure 3, and what at first looks like a 2/6/4 on the second beat of measure 5. Actually, the B in the alto acts more like a chord tone, where all the notes are part of a 2/4/3, and the seventh, which is the following A in the alto, resolves normally to G sharp. Third, note the seventh on the third beat of measure 4 in the alto part. It arrives and leaves by step. Fourth, note the 3/6 on the third beat of measure 5. This chord can sometimes substitute for a 1/6/4. Fifth, note the combination of 2 eighth note figures at the same time, usually in parallel thirds or 6, for example in measure 1, 2, and measure 4. Now another example with a different given part and in 3/4 time. This one is in 3 parts. The given voice is on top. Things to notice here. First of all, the dominant seventh is the main chord in the bar in measure 2. The 5/4/2 on the first beat of measure 4, and its slightly unusual resolution to a 3 harmony on the last beat, and 3, the suspension resolution with change of bass in measure 7. This means that the suspension resolves as expected, but the harmony changes. Here is one last example. The given line is the chromatic bass. The harmony here is roughly equivalent to an exercise in the second semester of a harmony course. Pay special attention to, first, the generally chromatic harmony, which includes several secondary dominants, like 7/7 of 5 in measure 4, 5 of 4 with a double neighbor in the soprano and tenor parts in measure 6. Without the leap to the F in the alto, where I might also interpret this chord as an E flat chord, but the leap and also the subsequent resolution militate in favor of 5 at 4. Second, note the 5/4/3 in measure 2, which has the 7th in the soprano migrating to the tenor on the last beat from where it resolves normally. Note also the 9th on the last beat of the bar. It resolves downward as expected in the next bar. Third, note the augmented 6th chord in the second half of measure 7. This works here because it prepares the ending. If it occurred too early in the phrase, it would require the rest of the exercise to be harmonically much richer, otherwise it would stand out too much. Fourth, note the accented passing tone in the alto on the first beat of measure 5. The other parts make the overall dominant harmony clear here, and the result is rich and consistent with the sound in the rest of the phrase. 5. Note the momentary 7/4/2 chord before the augmented 6th in measure 7. This is an unusual chord here, but the 7th resolves down as expected. It heightens the sense that this bar is the climax of the whole, which then relaxes into the more straightforward harmony at the cadence. Finally, note the cadential 6/4 in measure 8 on the first beat of the bar. All these examples show the degree to which a richer harmonic vocabulary is absolutely essential to Bach-style counterpoint. This is the point, which we mentioned early on in the course, where harmony and counterpoint come together. The richer harmony allows for more choice of notes in the lines, and the rich lines make the harmony more alive than the simple part writing and elementary harmony exercises. Secondary dominants, occasional altered chords, and the more elaborate dissonance formulas are all normal events in this kind of counterpoint. We'll see their application again and again as we move on to motives, imitation, stratified counterpoint, canon, instrumental style, and then invertible counterpoint, all of which are necessary for our ultimate goal, fugue. Students should use these and the other given parts in the accompanying PDF with the link below to realize 3- and 4-part counterpoints like the above models. It's a good idea to do more than one example with each given line. Remember, aim for the richest possible harmony, looking for 7th chords and their inversions and secondary dominants where possible. Apart from the fact that we're aiming for rich singable lines, the rules for counterpoint have now become the same as for advanced tonal harmony. Eighth notes must be conjunct. And finally, sing and play.